Trusting and alignment are probably two of the largest philosophies that you had to grow into.
Yes, I was very much of a mindset of what's supposed to be, what should be. Mind you, I was a United States Marine. So very early on in life, super structured way, rigid way of approaching the world. And so learning to trust, learning to align, understanding why I was being drawn in a certain direction to certain things, certain people, understanding why I drew certain people to me, certain situations. Susan really helped me understand how to trust my own intuition.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Authentic Conversations. If this is your first time with us, thank you so much for joining us. I am Amarelis. You know what to do. Hit the like button, share, leave a feedback. But today we have a special guest with us. Good morning, Susan. Hello, Marcus.
Good morning.
Good morning, Amarelis. Good morning, Susan.
So this is so awesome to have Marcus join us this morning because he's the only guy I know in the state of Texas whose license plate reads alignment. Marcus and I, we have a long history, but it's a long, strange history. So I think I would love for Marcus to share his perspective on our history. So Marcus, tell us what's new and exciting, and
a lot of things are new, a lot of things exciting, and I'll jump right into me and Susan's connection. It's crazy. Probably not that crazy once you hear the story. So, about the end of 2019, I left the corporate job and I was making moves to start my own business consulting. And in the interim, I was driving Uber. And for a lot of reasons, people drive Uber, do things like that, because it essentially gives you basically control of your time. You can, pick and choose your hours. So when you're working on something, it really fits into the hectic way your schedule is. Anyway, I'm driving Uber, and in Houston, like many places, we have, they do zoo lights. So down at the zoo, they have this big, walk through, everything's lit up, Christmas light type of thing. And they've got the kiosks out there selling cider and hot chocolate. It's 72 degrees, but that's another story. Anyway, zoo lights is a big thing. So I'm driving Uber one night. I get a request. I go pick up this group of young people. There are two young ladies and a young man hop in the car. So they get in and they begin. I said, "Oh, where are you guys going?" "Oh, we're going to see the zoo lights." They begin to ask me, "Have you ever been?" I was like, "I've been, not really impressed." I'm originally from Chicago and I've lived all over. So I've seen bigger and better. Houston doesn't really do Christmas right. It's like you have to be from a place that has a real winter, right?
True story. You don't know Christmas unless you know winter.
Or you can go, there are places, maybe not Texas in general, not really the Christmas state. Anyway, we're talking chit-chat, and a young lady in the middle asks where I'm from. I tell her, Chicago. "Where are you guys from?" She goes, "Oh, New York, Long Island," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, cool." Young lady in the passenger seat on the passenger side behind me, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from New York too." "Okay, where in New York?" She kind of hesitates and goes, "Well, it's a small place. It's like upstate New York." And I go, "Where upstate?" Now I'm going to pause right here because I have to say this. I have to say this to all you New Yorkers. Okay. Well, I'll get to it. I'll give my sidebar in a minute. She goes, "Upstate." And I was, "Oh, where upstate?" She goes, you probably never heard of a place called Orange County." And I go, "Oh, where in Orange County?" At this moment, she pauses. And I know why she's pausing, because no one's ever heard of Orange County, New York. The only Orange County anyone has ever heard of,
California.
So when I go, "Where in Orange County?" it's clicking in her mind like, oh, I'm not alone in the world. Somebody else in Orange County, New York. So she hesitates. She goes, well, a little town called Washingtonville. And I instantly go, get out of here. I said, I went to Washingtonville High School. She goes, no way. So the whole atmosphere, energy in the car changes, right? Because this is like a moment out of a book.
Yeah.
If you're watching and you've never heard of Washingtonville, New York, it's an itty bitty town in what New York City folk call upstate New York. Now I'm gonna give my sidebar before I finish the story. If you're from New York, Orange County, New York is not upstate. Do you people understand geography? Okay. New York City is at the bottom of the state. So technically everything is upstate New York. Okay. But when you see how big a state New York is, when you get into like, that whole Hudson Valley area, I mean, is it really upstate? No. When you look at a map, it's at the bottom of the state. All right, I digress. Had to get that in there. New York.
You're right.
But back to the story.
So now you got this 20-something in your car who's from the same
from
town
Washingtonville, New York,
that you went to high school in. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, she's super younger than me. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I said, I went to Washingtonville High School. And then she goes, no way. My mom, she said, my mom was the principal or assistant principal or something at the school. And I was like, what? She's like, no. My mom worked there. My mom worked at the school. So I'm like, wow. So she gets mom on the phone. She goes, Mom, you'll never guess. My Uber driver went to Washingtonville High School. Mom was like, whatever. It's like, no way. So then the young lady asked, she said, okay, when did you go? It's like, well, it was the early 90s. So this is like 92, 93, 94 time frame. So she tells mom the time. She's like, oh, okay. And what did you say your name was? She goes, my mom said she was a guidance counselor at Washingtonville High School. I was like, what? So mind is blown at this time, right? Young lady in the car from Washingtonville went to Washingtonville High School. Her mom worked at Washingtonville High School. So she goes, what's your last name? My mom wants to know what your last name is. I said, Brown. She gets on the phone. It gets quiet. She says, oh no, you're on the speaker. Mom's on the
I'm on speaker.
She's on
I'm
speaker.
on speaker. Mm-hmm.
Susan's on speaker. She's like, what's your last name? And I go, Brown, Marcus Brown. She says, my students were A through K during that time. I for sure was your guidance counselor. And the whole car is like, what is happening right now? So to give you some context, born and raised in Chicago, my father's was in the military. He moves to upstate New York, and he was in a part of the Army that wasn't regular active duty. It's called AGR. So he only served at reserve bases. So we were stationed at Stewart Army National Guard Base, Air National up there, right? So he's not even working at a regular Army unit, okay? My mom and dad have 3 kids together. I'm the youngest of 3. I'm the only one of the 3 to go live with my father later in life. So one time I was just like, hey, I'm gonna go live with dad. So I go live with dad, move to New York, okay? Then from there, we moved to Alabama. I joined the military, the Marine Corps, and I move all over Okinawa, San Diego, met my wife in Okinawa. Her family's from Texas. We move up to Seattle area. Then we eventually end up here in Texas. So I'm from all over everywhere, worked a bunch of different places, decided to quit my job, go, bet on myself. And I'm driving Uber in the meantime. And I run into a lady who's not from Texas, from New York. And her mom is my guidance counselor in high school. Yeah. That's you can't even write a Hollywood script.
How many people live in the city of Houston?
Okay, so Houston is vying with Chicago for the 3rd largest city in America. So you're talking millions.
6
Mhm.
million,
6
six
million.
point something
Har-
million.
Harris County, so the county itself, 11 plus million. Harris County is bigger than several states in population. And Houston makes up the majority of Harris County. So you're talking millions, 6 million people.
So then what happened, Marcus? So then what happened?
So then we go, sorry, I'm getting verbose. So then we get off the phone, we're in the car, and then Lauren, we're reminiscing. So I'm asking her all about this type of thing. So I drop them off, we take a picture, and I saved it in my phone. So then I go on about the night, and then about a few days later, it's in the back of my mind, Susan Cooney. So I hop online and I'm like, let me find Susan Cooney. Now, I have no idea how to spell her name. And I'm betting that Lauren is spelled a more typical way, E-N and not Y-N. So I'm on Facebook, and I was something of a researcher /
Stalker.
military. So I'm like, I know how to search it and add the quotations and different. Anyway, long story short, I find Susan online, send her a message. Hey, this is Marcus. Introduce myself.
Oh my God.
The other night, would love to chat. I don't even remember what we said. It was like, okay. So at this point in time, and I'm going through changes in my life at this moment, at the time that I reached out. And she's like, I'd love to chat. And so I don't know did you send me your website link or your page or something?
Yeah, because you said that, you were in a transformational time, and I'm like, oh, how funny is that? You find someone who is all about transformation in a transformational time. Marcus, you think about it, right? So somewhere along the line, you asked the universe for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what they did? They popped your guidance counselor's
Guidance
daughter in your
counselor.
backseat. I seriously. Like, it couldn't have been more clear. Like, you must be a really master manifester to absolutely make that happen.
Well, something, because you're talking nearly a 30-year time frame between that time and when we connected, and how everything, just that I was even able to find you online, not even remembering your name or anything. And actually I looked up Lauren, found Lauren. So even more removed from me,
Right.
found you through her. And so, I mean, talk about alignment, talk about synchronicity, talk about, coming full circle. But yes, transformational time, a transitional / transformational, I would say, even still very much. But so yeah, that's a story. That's how me and Susan are sitting here today on this podcast episode. And now, mind you, this was 2 years ago. So it wasn't 2019. It was November 2020.
It was November 2020.
November 2020 is when this happened. Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that one of the things that Susan always says is, because when I met her, Marcus also was like in this little yoga spot that I was like, where is this? And of course, I'm from the city of New York. So yeah, I felt like what you're saying, that I live way upstate New York. And everybody always said, no, you don't live upstate. And I'm like, no, this is upstate. Like an hour out of Manhattan is a long way. It took me a long time to adjust to that. And when I was searching, in the power of searching and looking for a community, back to grinding and aligning myself, I, through Facebook, find this small spot that's doing a sound healing. And I'm like, oh, where is this? And it's like, Susan, where are you again? Where is that?
Behind the green door in the corner, up the stairs. Where I was.
Yeah, you have to find her.
Sight.
Okay, like I'm like in the yoga studio trying to find her, and they're like, no, that's around the corner, up the little stairs, this little door. And I'm going, okay, well, it's not too far from my house. I don't know anything, and everything is 20 minutes away from Monroe, where I'm at. And it's this powerful connection. I just was like, wow. And I'm like, Susan, you're like the best kept secret. And she goes, when people need to find me, they will.
When you're ready,
Agreed.
when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that's true of all facets. So, I'm not just saying that for me, but I'm saying in general in life, what you need shows up exactly when you need it. The question is, will you recognize it and take advantage of it? That's the question.
So Marcus, you were searching and you found her. So where was this journey, the next chapter of this?
So from that point, we began talking, and then I would say probably weekly at the start, we were just connecting weekly, getting on a Zoom, getting on a phone call. I was living in Houston, and my children don't live in Houston. So living in Houston at the time and trying to make the transition up to Arlington where they live. And then, the pandemic was, so everything is crazy. Everything that felt like what should have been normal status quo wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
So everybody's navigating that and what's what. So the world itself was upside down. So imagine the feeling of just being discombobulated at that point in time. Also, at the same time, I was changing the direction. So I went from, I was doing business and businessman optimization services. I won't get into all that, but then I switched to doing financial services. So when I made the switch to doing financial services, I was doing a lot of education and schooling and that sort of thing at the time, which was something new. So with Susan, we were communicating regularly. And so as I'm going, like things are popping up. I mean, I was messaging you at like 1 a.m. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm like, this question's on my mind. What does this mean? Or does this even mean anything? Or how should I approach this?
So Marcus joined the seeker's path, right? He, there was a curiosity about growth and improvement and self-awareness.
Right.
And, in the beginning, it's like awestruck. First of all, you can't even imagine that. I think I was a much better guidance counselor to you now, this time around than I was when I was, 28 and trying to figure that job out then. Right. So thank you for the opportunity to get another shot at helping you better understand yourself. And I also think that it's so cool. It just opened this door, and it opened this door to opportunity. And I'm really curious, Marcus, because I think for you, obviously your license plate reads alignment. I think for you that is probably one of the biggest. Trusting and alignment are probably two of the largest philosophies that you had to grow into.
Yes. I was very much of a mindset of what's supposed to be, what should be. Mind you, I was, United States Marine, so coming from a very rigid, and that happens early. So I went to boot camp at 17. So very early on in life, super structured way, rigid way of approaching the world. And, in the military, if you can't, fix it, you just blow it up and go get a new one. Not really, but it's almost like kind of like that mentality. And so learning to trust, learning to align, understanding why I was being drawn in a certain direction to certain things, certain people, understanding why I drew certain people to me, certain situations, understanding that I have a fixer mindset. Like I want to fix everything. I want to fix people. So that was one of the things when you have that sort of look at life that Susan helped me see was you're going to attract situations that you're going to have to fix stuff. So if you want to get out of the fixing mode, you have to look at, inside. Like, why are you right here in this moment when this situation arose? So getting back to your point about alignment, trusting. It was eye-opening for me, and Susan really helped me understand how to trust my own intuition. And I had already done a ton of self-help, self-development. I had already done sort of a personal coaching, life development course. And I was heavy into professional development, but turning that lens inward and going, why are you repeating this same pattern, Marcus? This thing keeps happening to me. Is it really? Is that it? Is that what's happening? So learning to get quiet. So meditation, let me just right there. Not foreign to it. It wasn't a practice of mine. And I have a really, really deep religious background. So prayer, quiet time, meditation, those were not foreign concepts to me, but there are different ways to do it. And then there are different applications for it. But also just the practice of it, just the habit, developing the habit of doing it. It's really been crucial. And I'm still working on that. That's not fully formed habit yet, but that was something else. Susan was having a Thursday night guided meditation. And so going through that really was instrumental in helping me align with what I want, understanding why I wanted certain things, understanding that what I thought I wanted, I didn't really want. And there's a lot of unwinding of other people's beliefs and other people's impressions upon you, as an individual, as a person.
For sure.
Absolutely. Where did the license plate? Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because it feels like what's the story of? I mean, I love your stories, and I want to hear, where did alignment come in? I mean, to pick and pay extra, because right, you have to pay extra to have this. This is not like I just rather take whatever's free and take the license plate and put it on there. So Marcus, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's already feels like that journey, you were already calling this energy in.
Right. So there's not anything deep with it, but I'm a disabled veteran. And that's not a title that I promote, but that's basically a category. I have injuries from my military. So I was already looking to get a specialized plate, and Texas has a lot of benefits for veterans. So I was like, let me get a Marine Corps plate and put something on there. And so when I started looking, it's very, very inexpensive to get a customized plate. And I was like, man, I wanted a customized plate. And it's $40 a year here in Texas. And just through the conversations and things, this whole belief system around alignment was already something that was growing and kind of established in everything that I was doing, right? So I was already approaching anything new from, okay, is this moving me in the direction that I want to go to get to the things that I want to be, or involved in the things that I want to be involved in with the people with whom I want to be involved. So alignment was already, the constant theme. And then when I was typing in the website to look up the plates, and I started playing around with the word, because you only get 7 letters.
Okay.
Actually, you only get 6. I think you get the type of plate I got, they only give me 6. So I had to play around with this configuration. So that's kind of how that came about. And then when I realized how simple it was, I was like, oh, for sure, we're definitely doing that. That's no question.
Because it becomes simple when you open up yourself, right?
Yes.
I already put the obstacle saying it could be expensive, but then when you research it and you are trying to find this alignment of what works for you, you said this, right? Like, I'm already aligning myself with it. Is this good for me? Is this going to fulfill me, the people that I'm surrounding myself, or the choices that I'm making?
Yes. Yep. And that's even at times now when I hop on the road and drive Uber, it's always a good topic of conversation. And I get to tell Susan's story, our connection story, and it's good for business. So I've gotten business contacts now because it's a great icebreaker. But it really is memorable, more than memorable. But it's a what they call an inflection point. I would say it's an inflection point in my life, right? Where I was able to turn a corner of feeling stuck. And there are times now I still feel stuck compared where I am now compared to where I started, just in my understanding of myself and where I'm aiming. It's night and day. It's night and day.
And absolutely. And then, you're driving, right? So you can only look at the rear view mirror just for a little second, right? Just to make sure what's happening behind you. And you got to look at the side mirrors just to see what's happening with the neighbors next door, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to go back to the focus of the moment.
Yes.
Of right here, right? And you're trusting the fog, or you're trusting your headlights, right? That only gives you a certain amount of space in front of you. So back to the focus of in this moment, is this feeling, can you tell us, do you remember when you're feeling aligned? Because I love the power of the body, right? There's the gut, there's the heart, there's brain. And it's a connection of the brain, because you're saying, other people's thoughts and feelings become ours. And when we start aligning ourselves, we start realizing this is a programming. And do you think you remember a gut feeling when you feel like this feels good? Is it in your tummy? Is it in your heart?
It has been different. It has been different. So there are times when something strikes me and I'm like, oh, where did that thought come from? Oh, let me do that, and I'll do it now. I'll move on it then. I still struggle with my overthinking and my over analytical mind, dissecting something 6 ways from Sunday. But so sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's something that inspires me in the moment. I was like, oh wow, boom, let me do this right now. And then at other times I have competing ideas. And like one person said, it's like, you don't make the right decision, you make a decision, then you make that right. So I'll just make a decision. And then when I make the decision, these other follow-on things come that affirm the decision. And real quick along those lines, like I told Susan a couple of days ago when we were chatting, I don't know, maybe Monday, I think it was Monday. I was like, I had just been really quiet lately. So she and I haven't even really been talking and chatting. And I was like, I've been pushing myself into just being able to be quiet, as much quiet time as possible. Even from whether I'm playing something on YouTube, so I listen to a lot of motivational, inspirational stuff on YouTube, whether it's professional or personal, but cut my phone off, cut the stereo off, just as much time as I can focus on what's coming, what's coming up, what am I thinking about, where's my focus, what am I feeling right now, why am I feeling that? And it really, really has been helpful in getting clear. And I think this is a key thing I learned about alignment, and then I'll shut up.
Don't stop.
Never stop.
One of the key things I learned was, so my definition and my understanding of it have grown. And it's really there is no, let me use this analogy. So one of my jobs in the military was I was a marksmanship instructor, right? So I'm an expert rifleman. And so one of the phrases you use when you're range is sight picture, sight alignment, sight picture, sight alignment, sight picture, sight alignment. So they give you what you should be seeing, and then they show you how to line up your sight on the target. And breath control is one of the elements of good shooting, and you learn breath control. And you learn that when you're in position and you're breathing, it changes the alignment of the sights.
Wow.
And then there's a moment where everything's perfectly aligned, and that's when you want to shoot. And it's at the bottom of the exhale.
In the pause, at the top or the bottom.
The pause of the exhale. So everything about your alignment, your posture, and there's different. So when you're in the prone and when you're laying on your stomach, the way you align is you're aligning the sights so that your sight picture sight alignment is in the pause of the exhale. That is the perfect shot. So and I didn't even make this connection, and I've never even used this analogy, but in my growth, it's like your car has to constantly get in alignment. Why? Because you're using it, and there are forces, there are elements that are working in opposite to the alignment.
Yes.
And initially I was like, boom, I felt good. I was like, okay, I got the right career choice and I'm making the right steps. And I kept getting knocked off, and it was frustrating. It was irritating. It was kind of depressing. And I was like, oh, dude, you got to keep going back to get the alignment. You got to go back and recalibrate. You know what the target is. And so, like when you're shooting, they teach you shuffle your hips. So if you're laying on your stomach, you take your feet and you shuffle your hips. And then you get your elbows planted in the right place. And then once your elbows are set, and you're moving the rest of your body because you're pointing that weapon so that sight is aligned with the target. So there's constant adjustment, right? And then when you move, so when you're training, like on the rifle range, you go from different yard line to different yard line, and each one is a different position. One is standing, one is kneeling, one is in the prone, and then you can get even more complicated than that with some other things with obstacles. But each time you shift, each time you move, whether you move farther and farther away from the target, it requires recalibration every time. You use the same principles, but the action is different. So what I do, if I'm kneeling to shoot, I'm not moving my body the same way as if I'm standing to shoot. But I'm using the same principles so I can get those sights in alignment to get the right sight picture, right sight alignment. So I would say my understanding of alignment has grown in that it's something that's constant. And sometimes you don't even realize when you're kind of off the mark.
Right. And then, it's like when you're doing yoga. I mean, the process of yoga is connecting that quietness in the body movement. So you're building energy, you're breathing through the steps. And then when you're out of it, you're like, your mind stops thinking. And it's the same thing with life, right? You're misaligned when you're at a job that you're constantly complaining. If you're hearing yourself, like you're saying, if you make that quiet time to say, this doesn't feel right, right? That's what I was asking about, the feelings of in your gut or in your heart. And at one moment it did feel right? Because you went for that career and you thought that that's where you needed to be, maybe because your parents guided you. And then you realize this is not me. I've forgotten who I am. And I have to come back to me. I have to come back to what lights me up. And in the process, I have to do multiple things because things have to still get paid, right? So
yes,
let me align myself to get to this job because I know this is not where I want to be. How do I start working the work? And because people are like, well, let's manifest. Yeah, you can manifest things, but you still have to put an action to it.
You have to do the work.
You have to do
the work.
And the work isn't always easy. I mean, we all have to take this hibernation time or this, pause time to reflect and continue the self-awareness journey. It's fabulous though, when you think about all the resources and all the things that you already have inside of you. It's just finding the people, places, things, and opportunities that draw them out. Draw them out.
I would say that's another big lesson that I learned was moving away from the external validation in the external direction, especially when it comes to big and important decisions. You're being drawn to things for a reason. And sometimes you need to talk. You got to bounce ideas to get clarity.
Yes.
You got to bounce ideas around and get clarity. And then sometimes a lot of times other people's perspective can be something you never considered. Yeah. But learning to rely I would say learning to build and strengthen that inner knowing, awareness, and that trusting of, dude, I do know what to do. I do know what to do. I realize I'm pausing because I'm waiting for somebody to give me permission to do the thing I already know to do.
Exactly. You don't need permission. You have yourself. The answer again goes back to you. You know exactly what Marcus, your energy needs.
Yes.
Nobody else. And it's that's in the pause of listening, right? It's great to bounce off ideas or to talk to Susan, who can let you hear yourself. And she's not going to solve it, but she's going to give you the space and hold the space for you, so that then you can be like, oh yeah, I've been saying this. I know how to do it. I just have to put the action to it, because your ego is the fear that holds you back.
Yes.
Yeah. It automatically will start correcting it, or it will align you to start to talk to somebody who's going to really give you that negative feedback that you already been thinking. So then you're like, oh yeah, that person said it. Yep, that's right. That's why I shouldn't do it. Instead of saying, no, if I
gotta be true. Someone else says it's gotta be true.
It's gotta be true. Like, what? No. So
I love this, Marcus. I love this. You're gonna have to come back.
Thank you.
We can
You got
it. Seriously.
For sure.
Yes. Marcus has to join our book club of the work. Susan.
Yes, how to do the work. So yeah, no, it's yeah, it's an honor and privilege to be a part of people's lives every day. And each and every one of us are a part of each other's life every day. So, sometimes it's really, just about listening and noticing and just being present. It's so cool. And when someone shows up from, 30 years ago, there's a reason they're popping back in. Everybody gets to learn something, new about themselves when you reconnect.
Yes.
And I am, I'm glad that Lauren and Meg took the Uber to the Zoo Lights that day, because, it's enriched my life as well. So yeah, thank you, Marcus.
Well,
thank you, Marcus. And we can't wait to have you again in our show. We appreciate you. Oh my God, it was lovely having you today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you guys for so much positivity. And I really, really appreciate being here.